there was a time when you didn't pause this long before speaking. A thought would arrive and you would follow it. A reaction would appear and you would let it exist without immediately examining it. You didn't hold your words in your mouth first to check if they were allowed. You didn't run your memory back afterward to make sure you had understood things correctly. Your sense of what was happening around you felt simple then. You noticed something, and that was enough. If a conversation felt strange, you trusted the feeling. If something someone said stayed with you in an uncomfortable way, you allowed yourself to register that discomfort. You didn't immediately assume you must have misunderstood. You didn't rush to correct your own perception before anyone else had even questioned it. There was less negotiation happening inside your head. You remember small moments of that version of yourself. They weren't dramatic. They were quiet, ordinary moments. Speaking up in a conversation without rehearsing the sentence first. Responding honestly when someone asked how you felt. Walking away from an interaction without replaying every word later that night. Back then, your thoughts moved forward. Now they circle. A single moment can follow you for hours. Something you said begins to echo in your mind. Did it come out wrong? Did they mean something else when they responded that way? Did you misunderstand the entire situation? The strange part is that the doubt often arrives after the moment has already passed. During the conversation, you may have felt clear. You understood what was being said. You reacted naturally. But later, when the quiet returns, another voice begins asking questions your earlier certainty never asked. Maybe you were too sensitive. Maybe you read too much into it. Maybe you remembered it wrong. And slowly, almost without noticing exactly when it happened, your own perception stopped feeling like solid ground. Instead, it became something you check, something you revisit, something you hesitate to trust the first time it appears. At first, the doubt doesn't feel dramatic. It arrives quietly, almost politely. You notice yourself pausing a little longer before responding to something. A small hesitation appears where there used to be a simple reaction. You feel it, but it seems too minor to question. So you move past it. Maybe someone corrects you about something small, a detail in a story, the order in which something happened. You remember it one way, but they say it happened differently. It's not a serious disagreement, just a small moment. And for a second, you hold both versions in your mind, yours and theirs. The moment passes quickly, but something about it lingers longer than expected. Later that evening, you replay it again, not because it mattered that much, but because a quiet uncertainty has settled in. Did I remember it wrong? The question is soft, almost casual, but it appears more often after that. You start noticing how frequently you go back to check your own memory. A conversation that felt clear during the moment becomes less certain afterward. Words you were sure you heard begin to blur at the edges when you try to recall them. It's never a dramatic shift. It's more like a slow rearranging of trust. You notice it in small conversations. Someone explains what they meant, and it doesn't quite match what you thought they said earlier. The difference isn't large enough to challenge, so instead, you adjust your understanding quietly. You tell yourself you must have misunderstood. That explanation becomes convenient. It smooths things over quickly. It keeps conversations easy. But something else begins to change at the same time. You start watching yourself more closely. Before responding to something, you pause to check your reaction. Before sharing a thought, you quickly review it in your mind to see if it could be interpreted differently than you intended. Even simple interactions begin carrying a small layer of self-monitoring. You notice yourself explaining things more carefully, adding extra sentences so that nothing can be misread, clarifying what you meant before anyone even asks. And the strange thing is that no one may have directly asked you to do this. It just begins happening. You move through conversations with a quiet awareness that something about your perception might not be fully reliable. Not completely wrong, but maybe not fully correct either. So you compensate. You listen more carefully. You analyze more. You revisit moments after they pass, checking them again from different angles. At first, it feels responsible, thoughtful even. But slowly, the space between what you experience and what you trust about that experience begins to widen. And once that distance appears, it rarely stays small. At some point, the doubt stops feeling like a passing thought. It becomes a quiet background process that follows you through the day. Not loud enough to interrupt everything, but present enough that you begin adjusting yourself around it. You notice it most clearly after conversations. Someone says something that leaves a small mark. Maybe the tone shifts slightly. Maybe a comment lands in a way that feels heavier than it was meant to. In the moment, you react normally. You nod. You answer. The conversation continues, but later the scene returns. You begin replaying it slowly. Not because you want to, it just happens. Your mind circles the moment again, examining it from different angles. What exactly did they say? What exactly did I say back? At first, you search for clarity, but the more you revisit it, the less certain it becomes. Words begin to shift slightly in memory. The tone becomes harder to place. The feeling you had during the moment now competes with a quieter voice asking whether that feeling was accurate. Maybe I misunderstood it. The sentence appears almost automatically now, and it solves something temporarily. If you misunderstood the moment, then the discomfort can be explained away. The tension dissolves quickly when the responsibility returns to you, so you accept that explanation more often. You start adjusting your reactions earlier, even before uncertainty has time to appear. During conversations, you begin listening for signs that your interpretation might be wrong. You study expressions more carefully. You search for clues that confirm whether your understanding is correct. Your attention slowly shifts away from the conversation itself and toward monitoring your own perception of it. You begin asking small questions that didn't used to be necessary. Did that come out the way I meant it? Was that too much? Did they mean something else when they said that? These questions are quiet, but they accumulate. Over time, they begin shaping the way you move through ordinary interactions. You speak a little more carefully. You soften certain statements before they leave your mouth. Sometimes you explain what you meant even when no one asked you to clarify. It feels safer that way. But something else happens at the same time. The space between what you feel and what you allow yourself to trust begins to widen. A reaction appears inside you, but before it can fully form, another thought steps in to examine it. Is that reaction fair? Is that interpretation accurate? And the longer this process continues, the harder it becomes to recognize where the original experience ended and the analysis began. The moment itself fades. What remains is the investigation. Eventually, the doubt no longer waits until after conversations are over. It begins arriving during them. You feel yourself adjusting mid-sentence, correcting your tone, searching for the safest way to finish a thought. From the outside, nothing may appear different. The conversation continues normally. But inside, something that once moved naturally has become careful. After a while, the questioning becomes familiar. Not comfortable exactly, but familiar in the way something repeated often enough begins to feel like part of the environment rather than an interruption. You notice it the same way you notice the quiet sounds of a room at night, a floorboard settling, the faint movement of air behind a curtain. It is simply there. A thought appears and almost immediately another thought arrives beside it, checking it. A memory forms and another voice quietly reviews it. The two processes begin happening so closely together that it becomes difficult to tell which one came first. Was that how it happened? Or is that just how I remember it now? You may not say these questions out loud. Most of the time they stay inside, moving quietly through your mind while everything around you continues normally. Conversations continue. Days move forward. From the outside, nothing unusual is visible. But inside, something that once felt immediate has become slightly delayed. Your reaction arrives first. Then comes the pause. In that pause, you begin measuring what you felt. You look at it carefully, almost from a distance, as if the experience belongs to someone else, and you have been asked to evaluate it before accepting it. Sometimes the pause is brief. Other times, it stretches longer than the moment that created it. You think back over something that happened earlier in the day, a conversation, a look someone gave you, a sentence that stayed with you. You examine it again, slowly, searching for the exact point where your understanding might have shifted away from what was really meant. And sometimes you find nothing, no clear mistake, no obvious misunderstanding, just the quiet awareness that the moment still feels uncertain. For a long time, that uncertainty may seem like something you are supposed to solve. As if enough careful thinking could eventually place everything in the correct order again. But not every experience arranges itself that way. Some moments remain slightly blurred, like reflections seen through a layer of fog. You can still recognize the shapes. The outlines are there, but the details never fully sharpen. And perhaps the most honest thing you can do with those moments is simply let them exist that way. Not corrected, not resolved, just seen.